In this video, we're going to take a look at Access Chapter 4 Skill-Based Training. Now this particular training can be a little tricky at times. I know a lot of people are having trouble with it at this time. Sometimes some of the things that seem like they're working don't always work quite right. Fortunately for us, it's only 8 questions, and we're going to try to work through this right now, and hopefully I'll be able to show you some troubleshooting tricks to get past things. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a form using the form tool based on the customers table. The customers table is highlighted. We'll click on form. We're going to change the width of the customer ID field. We're going to shrink this down to about half the size that it originally was. Don't worry about being exact on this one. My IT Lab is pretty forgiving with this step, and as long as you're somewhere close to the end of the comments field, everything should be fine. We're going to change the title of the form to Customer Information. And when we do that, the form should close automatically, but we need to do something to trigger My IT Lab so it knows that we're done with our data entry. I usually try to use the tab key, but in this case, go back to the title and hit enter. Usually, or normally, that should be the trigger that My IT Lab is looking for. Now, sometimes, like in this case, you hit enter, it won't take it, and it actually it won't allow you to do a backspace or delete any of those faulty attempts. So sometimes you just need to reset this question and start it again. So that's what I'm going to do here. Under Create, we're going to create the form. We're going to shrink this field, and we're going to change the name of this to customer information. And I'm going to wait for a second so My IT Lab can detect that and receive my data entry, and I'll hit enter. Sometimes, if the planets do align, that will go through. If it doesn't and it gives you a carriage return in that title, just know that sometimes you have to wait a little while after putting your data entry in there for this to actually go through. We're going to take another approach at forms. We're going to create a split form based on that customers table, and we'll just go under more forms and choose split form. And all we're really going to do here is we're going to change the name, space dash space split view. And again, with this one, just pause for a moment and maybe try hitting enter and see if that clicks over. You kind of see the screen flicker a little bit because that's My IT Lab actually grading that successfully. Now we're going to create another new form here. Create form, and this one is going to be a form actually based on, looking down here, it's actually based on the products table. So we're going to go to the products table, and it's going to be a multiple items form. Scroll down here a bit, and we're going to see that we just need to change the title of this one as well. As you're doing this, you can see that My IT Lab is showing you the various layouts. Sometimes everything's all in one column, sometimes things are in split columns, and this one, it's just many different items going on all at once. And we'll just pause for a moment and then hit enter, and it clicked on through. And now we're going to create a form using the form tool based on the orders table. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward. Highlight orders, create a generic form, and then we're going to delete this subform piece down here. Click on this, it should outline with a border, and then just hit the delete key and it will remove that subform. Now this second question, we're going to take a look at this data. The data lives in the customers table, but we're going to be working with the customer information form. When we make a change in the form, the data in the table automatically gets updated as well. So we're going to go to the 6th record, and this is another case where, connection aside, you need to let my IT lab keep up with you. So take your time and click through these. Uh, Racing through it will only lead to some trouble. You'll notice that this is changing with each click, and that's actually my IT lab detecting that you've properly moved to that sixth field. So now we're going to change this contact to Lucas Duda. We're going to pause again just for a second so that my IT lab does know that our data entry is done. And if all goes well, we'll click on this next field and see it actually didn't take it yet. What it needs to do is it needs to detect that we've successfully completed that data entry. So I'm just going to click a little bit here just so it can see. I'm going to try the tab key just to give it a moment to recognize that that has changed. This is a My IT Lab thing. This is not an Access thing. Access would have already been updated by now. And now we'll try clicking to that next field again. Maybe a prior field. We'll double check our spelling. Everything is really correct. We are in that sixth field. And the only field that we really want to move to is we want to move to this very next field. But sometimes this just doesn't always work right for some reason. Perhaps in troubleshooting this, my IT lab wants you to look at the customers table first. Well, we can do that, and we can see that Adam Sanchez's data is still there. Maybe it wanted us to just simply click on this to view it before making our Lucas Duda switch. Okay, so if that's the case, we should be able to put in our data, and now we should be able to click to the next field. And it looks like it's accepted that. And now the idea is that once we've clicked that other record, we switch back to the customers table and we can verify that that contact changed. Adam Sanchez has become Lucas Duda. And we can see right here that that change took effect. And you can also then see my IT lab jumping us over to the very next part of this activity. So in the bottom portion of the split form, down here, we are going to find Lugo Computer Sales. We'll click on that. And by doing that, it brings it up here as well. And in the top portion, we are going to correct a typo. It should say service, and it was not spelled correctly. But what we're showing is we can go in and make these changes by looking up our records really quickly and then making our data entry changes very quickly as well. And for it to take effect, I'm going to hit the tab key, and that triggers my IT lab to know that I'm done putting in data and I am ready to move on to the next step. On to question 3. This one seems to give people the most trouble, and there's a good chance it'll give me trouble as well. But in this particular activity, we're going to reduce the height of the fields so they're only as tall as they need to be. There's a lot of space wasted here, so we're going to drag this and shrink that down about to there. You'll notice that they all click in if you got that right. We're going to click on the cost column, right click and choose delete column. We're going to right click on markup and we're going to delete that column as well. And now we're going to change the name of this field just to stop taking up so much space. We're going to get rid of everything but refridge. Again, I'm going to pause just a moment so that my IT lab keeps up with me. The server side of this application seems to need to know that my data entry is correct. And then I'm going to hit tab in order for that change to be submitted. My data entry is done. Okay, this next step also confuses people. We're going to apply the slice theme to this object only. Which object is this object? Well, in this case, what my IT lab is saying is they want us to apply this theme right here to this object only. So they're actually giving us the exact wording of the step that they want us to take. When we do this, you'll notice the theme slightly changes and we move on to the next step. We're going to change the customer name field font size customer name, and this is simple. This is just what we did back in Word. We're going to choose 16, and I'm going to hit Tab so it can update itself. Again, just go slow. If you type in 16 and hit enter really quick, it's not going to detect that properly and you're going to have some trouble. And then in this one, we're going to change the shape fill to light turquoise background 2. There are no tooltips right now. We don't really know why, but I can tell you that it's this third column top color right under theme colors. And now we're going to add in the home page field right here. In order to do that, we're going to go to Design, and we're going to choose Add Existing Fields. You should see this field list pop up over here on the right. If you don't, there's a different problem that sometimes does occur. But in this case, we want to just drag homepage and drop it right between email address and address 1. And if all goes well, it should plop right in there. Now, I'm going to click off of that so it can be detected. I'm just going to give it a second. And then I'm going to click over on the revenue query, and I'm going to create a new form. And we're just creating a very simple form here. No buzzes, no bells or whistles. And we're going to remove the layout for this form. Now to do so, and this one tricks up a lot of people. This one is particularly ornery about how this stuff goes. So we want to take a look back at the exact steps. Remove layout. What we want to do here is, let's go here. We've created our form. We're going to right click, and from the shortcut menu we're going to click Design View. And then we're going to click on the last name text box. We're going to hold Control and we're going to click on all the remaining text boxes. Okay, so we go into Form, we made our form, we're going into Design View, which isn't really all that well described in those steps, but we need to know to do that. And then we're going to click the last name text box and all of the remaining text boxes under it. So we'll go here, we're going to switch to Design View, and we're going to highlight these text boxes. Make sure you get them all. There might be more further down the screen. And then under the under the Arrange tab, we want to remove the layout. And that's going to get us by that question, which does seem to be one of the ones that hangs up people the most. Okay, on this one, we're going to select all of our controls and we're going to switch the layout to tabular. I'm just doing a a control click on these and selecting them all. And then we are going to change our layout to tabular. Looks like we might need to go to the design view for this one as well. No, or perhaps we need to select all of the pieces to go to tabular. And there it is. When in doubt, try selecting a little bit more stuff or a little bit less stuff. Some of this stuff does take a little troubleshooting because things that may happen normally in Access may or may not happen properly in my IT lab, because it is really trying to guide you down particular steps. Now we're going to switch to stacked, and we are going to switch to form view, and we're going to right click and go back to form view. We're going to open the customer information form in form view, and to do that we just double click, and we're going to use the navigation buttons down here on the bottom, and we're going to switch to the second record, and then we're going to use the navigation button to switch back to the first record. We'll click on the first one again. It says incorrect action, and normally this would work just fine, but the reason it thinks it's an incorrect action is because somehow we need to click on this one, which should jet us back to the very first record. Even if we're on record 55, it's always going to jet us back to the first one. So click on this icon, not this one. This one will not be accepted by my IT lab. In Access it works fine, but just know that you need to use this one that sends you all the way back to the very first record. So it kind of implies that, but there are many ways to get to that first record. It wants you to use that one. And we're going to add a sort to the customer name field. So we'll click on the customer name field, and we're going to sort our data. Actually, we can do this by right-clicking, and we're going to sort in ascending order, A to Z. On this next step, we are going to create a new report based on the products table. We're going to use the report tool. Under Create, we are going to create a report. Notice we're not getting into a tremendous amount of depth in forms and reports. We're really just making some basic changes to these. We're going to change this to Products Report. And I'm going to give my IT lab a second, and I'm going to try to hit Enter. And it accepted it. And we're on to the next part. And we're going to change this report to a landscape format. This is a page thing. We want to go to Landscape. And now I'm going to make a new report based on the revenue query using the report wizard. I'll go to Create, and here I want the report wizard. I'm going to select City, Order Date, Price, Revenue, and Product Name in that order. That's the order we want them in. And I'm going to click Next. Then I'm going to add some grouping by city. So I'm going to leave city highlighted here, and I'm going to click that over. And you'll notice now all of the stuff under a particular city will be listed. So I've grouped my report so it's viewed on a city by city basis. And I'm going to sort by order date, which is coming up here. How do I want to sort? I want to sort by order date in ascending order. Whoops. I need to also display the summary options, and I need to display the average of the price field. Say OK to that. Click Next. There's nothing to change in this one. We're actually going all the way down to the point where we're naming our report. And we're going to call it Sales, let's see, caps, lowercase on this one, Sales by City. Don't get thrown off by that. A lot of times my IT lab is looking for caps on all of the words. I think we had one in just a prior exercise where the word buy was actually capitalized. So just keep in mind it must be exactly as it's listed down here in blue. We're going to accept all the other settings, and we are going to say Finish, and it should be displayed. We're going to adjust the sizes of the price field width so that the width is wider than the original size. Okay, so we want this field to be wider, and then we're going to drag the left edge of revenue over here so that it's about half the current width. Well, if we're grabbing the left edge of revenue, we're actually shrinking price by about half of its current width. So even though it'll all be displayed, this one acts a little bit strange. So we're going to adjust the size of the price field, so we're going to be wider. So we want to be somewhat wider. And you can kind of see that my IT lab accepted that because the screen scrolled my instructions again. And now we want to drag the left edge of the revenue field to be about half the current width. Well, if we were doing this, we'd be shrinking down this way. And the entire price field is already displayed. So this one is a little bit tricky. Do they want us to be over here? Do they want us to be over here? It's kind of hard to tell exactly what my IT lab is after in this step, because there doesn't seem to be a problem with the price field to begin with. So what I've found when completing this exercise is you just have to monkey around with it a little bit until My IT Lab clicks in. There isn't really any real rhyme or reason to that particular step. Um, it's just a really odd step. We're going to save the sales by city report as a PDF. So even though it looks like product is selected, we really are on sales by city. All you really need to do for this one is click on the PDF export option, and we're just going to use the default name. Just click publish. On this next one, we are going to add in a new field. Here's another one that does give people some problems. Sometimes when you click add existing fields here, nothing shows up. Nothing at all. And this is kind of a deal breaker because this is the only method that My IT Lab is willing to accept for this one. Here's where we are. We want to add the on hand field. In the ribbon, we want to click on this, or we can use the keyboard to bring up that same side panel. Those are the only two ways that this can be completed, and if that panel just doesn't appear, there's really not another way out of this one. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to click Save for Later, and what I have found is by exiting out and launching it again, sometimes that is all it takes and that field will appear. Now, I'll admit I don't even have the best batting average with that, but I'd be happy for that to work. So here's what we're going to do. Looks like we want to add this on-hand field between cost and markup percent right in here. So I'll click Add Existing Field, and here it is. This time it appeared. So I want on hand, and I want it to go right between these two. It's hard to see this, but there's this little pink bar that floats about half an inch to the left of where my cursor is. My IT Lab is trying to help me position this, but is it where my mouse is, or is it where this pink bar is? I'm going to split the difference and guess that it might be somewhere in between. And that seems to work, but again, that one acts a little bit strange. On this next one, we're going to delete the year introduced column from the products report. Year introduced is way over here. We'll right click and we will delete the column. We're going to remove extra white space in the product ID column, and we'll just shrink it down somewhat. And we're going to change the refrigeration needed column heading to refrig ? And here we'll just double click on this. We're editing this to say refrig ? I'm going to tab away so My IT Lab knows that I've entered that data, and I'm going to apply the organic theme to this report. Themes, and organic is one of these themes. Without tooltips, this one's a little tough. Let me see if I can find out which one this is. Okay, so by looking in Access, where the tooltips are working, it appears that it's this one. We're going to right click and apply it to this object only, because that's the theme that we're after. Now we want the retrospect theme. Which one is retrospect? Well, okay, retrospect is actually the one right next to it. So this one should work. And that's how you can get through Access Chapter 4 skill-based training. Now it takes a little bit of work, takes a little bit of effort, but that'll get you through it. Actually, you know what? That is not quite the end. There's actually one more question, I believe, that we didn't quite do. So I need to launch this one individually, because when I had exited out and saved my work for later, I went into number 7 individually. There is this one more that we actually need to do. So I want to make sure you can see The way to get through every single one of these, and this one's not terribly difficult, we're going to use the group and sort button, and we're going to add a sort by brand and a group for the brand field. So we're going to use the group and sort button, and we're going to add a sort, and that's going to be by brand, and we're going to add a group by brand as well. And that's all there is to that last one. And that should get you through it, and you have then completed all of the different steps in Access 2013 skill-based training for Chapter 4 in my IT lab.